Aloha and welcome as we take you on an epic ride with Jack Harter Helicopters on the island of Kauai. We love helicopter tours and have done some pretty epic flights in our time, soaring over the Las Vegas Strip, sunsets at the Grand Canyon, doors off over New York City at night, and exploring the lost worlds of Oahu. We just love getting up in the air and seeing some of the best sights in America. So when we headed to Kauai as part of our epic month in Hawaii, we just knew we had to get up in the air. Little did we know, this would turn out to be one of our favourite helicopter flights ever. Let's talk you through the various options on planning and booking a Kauai helicopter trip while we get in the air with Jack Harter. There are a lot of options for helicopter tours on Kauai, and most of them fly out of the Lihue airport, and this was the most obvious location for us as we were staying in Poipu. Blue Hawaiian also flies out of the tiny Princeville airport, as well as Lihue, but the vast majority depart only from Lihue. These tours fall into two categories: the mass market tourist tours, who use the popular touring helicopters such as the EcoStar and the A-Star from Eurocopter. These are all amazing aircraft that offer a safe and reliable way of seeing the island. These are enclosed aircraft though, which means any photographs must be shot through glass, which is often dirty and scratched and always reflective. We hate shooting through windows, and that's why we prefer the more exciting option: doors off. These tours use smaller, more nimble aircraft that have had the doors removed, meaning you are exposed to the elements. These kind of tours are really thrilling as you soar across the landscape and you can't help but feel you are in a Vietnam War film. There are some obvious advantages to this, such as the excitement and the fact that your views are not obscured by scratched reflective glass. But a couple of drawbacks too. Not everyone wants this level of thrill. These are pretty intense adventures. For those people, the more sedate, tourist-focused tours such as Blue Hawaiian and Island Helicopters are better suited, especially the latter that actually lands at the Jurassic Park Falls, giving you a really unique experience. The lack of doors can also make the ride pretty uncomfortable. The wind really batters you, and any wind and rain can really blast you while you're riding shotgun. The aircraft are also a lot more basic. The rides can be a little rough, and overall, the experience is a little rough and ready. But the upsides far outweigh these negatives for us, so the doors off options are always our go-to. There are a few doors off options in Kauai: Safari Helicopters, Mauna Loa Tours, and a few others. But for us, Jack Harter really stands out. They use the fantastic MD-500 helicopter of Magnum PI fame rather than the smaller, ricketier R-55s favoured by the other companies, which are also cheaper. They also fly longer and further than any other company, giving you more of the island and more time at each site. This all adds up to an obvious choice, and we happily went with Jack and at no point regretted the decision. For full transparency, we paid for this tour entirely by ourselves, and we are not sponsored in any way by Jack Harter. They were just the tour company we decided was the best option for us on this trip. Jack Harter only offers one tour, and this costs $380 per person, with some pretty strict rules regarding weight due to the weights and balance restrictions on the aircraft. Most of the other tour operators offer pretty much the same route, which is mandated by the FAA, but most other tour companies complete their tours a little bit faster as Jack Harter takes their time. The only exception here is Island Helicopters. This flies the same route, except it lands at Manawaiapuna Falls, commonly known as Jurassic Falls. This is where the helicopter first lands in the original Jurassic Park movie, and you get to recreate this. This is a very tempting offer, but the landing does not quite outweigh the thrill of the doors off for us. So Jack Harter it is. We arrived at Jack's HQ and were checked in and paired up with our flight groups. Here the ground staff were excellent and gave us a fantastic intro as to what we could expect for the day. They really looked after us. After this, we headed over to the heliport to meet the pilot and get an extensive safety briefing and life jacket assignment. Seating assignment is done at the aircraft, as some people are disappointed with their seating assignments. In the MD-500, there are only 5 seats, 1 for the pilot and 4 for passengers. 2 in the front, 2 in the back. We got the back seats, which can be disappointing, but they are still not bad seats, just not quite as good as sitting up front. But also, one of the persons sitting up front is not assigned a window seat and has to sit between the pilot and the passenger, which is also less than ideal. By being in the back, both me and Kate were assigned a window, or more accurately, a hole seat, and this gave us the best views out of the side of the aircraft. We then boarded the aircraft and headed on our way. As the chopper left the heliport, the first section of the flight is pretty dull. That's a pretty rough assessment as you fly out over the green and verdant countryside surrounding the airport. It's pretty stunning really, but lacks a focal point and is just farm and scrubland for the first few minutes. The first real point of interest is Jurassic Falls, and the fly past is pretty brief, but the pilot makes sure everyone gets a good look at the falls. Then the tour skirts off, passing several other stunning waterfalls on the way to Waimea Canyon. Often called the Grand Canyon of the Pacific, Waimea Canyon is actually much smaller, but it is still seriously stunning with incredible colours and stunning geographic features. Here the aircraft pulled off some pretty intense manoeuvres that were really exciting, and we took in the stunning canyon from above. To be honest, it's a good job the canyon is smaller, as this makes it much more accessible. The actual Grand Canyon is so massive you can't really see all of it from the air, as it's just too big. Waimea Canyon is far more compact, and the tour takes in most of the canyon in just a few minutes. At the end of the canyon sits the incredible Waipo'o Falls. Cascading down into the canyon, this stunning waterfall really showcases the unique and stunning geography of Waimea Canyon. Soaring out of the canyon, the tour then heads over the mountaintops and out over the mind-blowing Napali coastline. The Napali Coast is really the headline attraction in Kauai, and it's not hard to see why. The Hawaiian Islands are a stunning location, laced with beautiful mountains, valleys and coastlines, but the jewel in its crown is the Napali Coast on Kauai. It's one of those sights that is really hard to believe is real, when you put the viewfinder up to your eye and you could scarcely believe the image you're seeing is not doctored. We soared over these majestic cliffs for several minutes, which are almost inaccessible and completely undeveloped apart from a few ruins left by the ancient Hawaiians. Taking a few passes into the valleys and peering down into the open-top sea caves before heading a little out to sea to get an overview look of the coast. The tour then followed along the coast up to the stunning remote coastal town of Hanalei. Rumour has it, this is where Puff the Magic Dragon frolicked in the autumn mist, but not everyone agrees with this translation. But what is pretty widely agreed upon is how stunning this coastline is, and from the air, it's even more magical. You can certainly imagine dragons roaming this land. We took in the spectacle from above, before heading inland once more. This part of the route was stunning, but again lacked real focal points. There were lashings of waterfalls to the point where maybe we could say we'd had enough waterfalls, but not much else really. It was just beautiful, empty wilderness and jungle. The final feature presentation was the sunken crater of Mount Waialeale. This is the island's highest mountain and is one of the wettest places on Earth. All this water falls in the highlands and drains out daily. This is what carves the stunning valleys and canyons and powers the endless waterfalls. This is most apparent in the Waialeale Crater, where a wall of tears floods down the crater walls. The helicopter flies right into the crater, making some sharp banked turns in a very thrilling fashion. How often are you going to fly into a real volcano in your life? A really surreal and magical part of the tour. From here, it's back to the airport, and in comparison to what you've just witnessed, this part of the trip is pretty boring. It's back to just ranchland and jungle, which would be beautiful, but you've just flown over some of the most magical scenery imaginable. So this is pretty basic in comparison. Back at the airport, you get the chance to get a few snaps with the helicopters, and then back on the minibuses back to the HQ to depart. It kind of leaves you a bit shell-shocked, going from soaring over the island to just back at the car, stuck back on terra firma. This tour really was the highlight of our entire trip. We did so much on this Hawaiian Odyssey that it's hard to pick the best parts, but this tour was so stunning it elevates itself to one of the best helicopter tours we have ever done. If we were heading back to Kauai and only had time for one thing, this would be it. It was easily worth the money and showcases the island like nothing else could. So much of Kauai is inaccessible, and a helicopter is the only way to get to see most of it. And Jack Harter is easily our top pick for getting out and seeing the parts of the island you just can't get to by land. So make sure a helicopter tour is part of your Kauai itinerary. We have links in the description to Jack Harter and some of the other helicopter tours available. Mahalo for watching, and remember to like and subscribe to see more of what we did in Hawaii on this trip, and to follow along with our upcoming adventures.